Hey, music community, Jeff here, and I'm jumping on a contest. Yes, another contest entry fun time. This is for Alex over at Beer and Vinyl. He is a fairly new channel, and I just discovered him because I saw some contest entries on this, and I see already that we have a little in common. I mean, he's got a pretty diverse thing from what I've seen in some of the clips already, but one of his favorite bands is one of my favorite bands, Dream Theater. So we've got something in common, so I'll be definitely checking this out. Apparently, he started his channel like in October, so what, 6-7 months ago? Barely, roughly, and he's already hitting 500. The contest is to celebrate, or was to push to 500. He's past that now, but the contest's been going on for a little bit, short amount of time, and he's over 500. So that's some pretty substantial growth, which I think is great. So I'm sure his content is worthy of it. So I'll be checking out more of it for sure. Anyway, he's doing a contest celebrating or pushing to or celebrating now 500. And he wants to basically see 5 albums, 5 pieces of music, 5 stories about some music or song that reminds you of someone you love or something something you love of some kind of a loving memory. So I found it funny that most of mine are centered more around childhood time frame. So anyway, I'm sure if I dug deep enough in memory, maybe I don't have any loving memories in the past. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, I have some memories of early stuff that bring back fond feelings, friendships, love, things like that. So let's get right into this. I went ahead and put these in order from youngest to oldest. So this is going back to the oldest memories and coming forward to the newest. And so we got first Adam and the Ants. Now, back in high school, I was a metalhead. I was a hair metal guy. I did all that. It was the 80s and all that, right? But, I had a pretty diverse taste because I cut my teeth, in my earlier years, my preteen years, on disco. And so I had a pretty diverse taste. I listened to a lot of stuff. MTV was big. We saw a lot of stuff on there. We saw a lot of stuff we kept changing the channel on. But for the most part, there was a lot of bands outside of hard rock and metal that I did listen to. Yeah, not a huge amount, but for some reason this band did stand out as one of my absolute favorites. Adam and the Ants was just one of my favorites. Now, I had a really good friend in high school, and she liked Adam and the Ants. So we had this in common, aside from the fact that we were already really good friends. We both loved Adam and the Ants. So, very good friend. We had, great times together. Anyway, it reminds me a lot of that time frame. Now, jump forward. I joined the military. I left town, and she was one of those really good friends that I spoke to on the phone all the time. We were a part of a friend group that just did everything together. One of my best friends in high school, and then I joined the military and I left. And so when I came back 20-some years later, which was 22 years ago, she's still sort of local, and and with Facebook now, you make friends with us, so we're still friends. And actually, when was it? It was less than 10 years ago. So more than 10 years ago, probably less than 15 years ago, Adam Ant came back to the U.S. for one of his first tours, and he came to this town, and her and I went to this. Her husband too, but her husband, I, and her went to see Adam and the Ants. Now, Adam Ant. And then a few years after that, which was in the less than 10 years ago, he came back to a relatively close amount of town, and we again, her, I, and a friend of hers went to see it. So there's still that connection. We still have that love for that. And so, I've seen her maybe 4 or 5 times, maybe half a dozen times in the past 20 years, but we're still in contact. Her husband's in a band. Her husband is always in need of a drummer, and they're always trying to get me to play drums for the band, which I wouldn't mind doing, except for that they live close to 2 hours away, and it'd be tough to do practices. But that's just one of the loving memories of a childhood, still close friend of mine. So, all right, moving up a couple years, not really, probably around the same time. And again, I know none of the stuff that I'm showing is hard and heavy, so it's all the lighter stuff in my collection. So, but Men at Work, this album, the only thing so I have a photo, and I know I've shown it before, but this reminds me of my mother, who passed away in 2002, right before we moved home. Literally the year we moved home, we're living in her house now. She passed away. We bought the house from my stepfather, and here we are. But this album was bought for me by her for Christmas when it came out. And I have a photo of me, and this shows the diversity of my collection at the time. And for Christmas that year, and I could have pulled the other album. I don't know why this one stuck out. I have the other album right over there, except for the significance of this, is I have a picture of me on the bed holding this album, Missing Persons, the M Sessions album, and Ozzy Speak of the Devil. Those were my Christmas presents at the time from my mother. The thing that's significant about this is literally the same album. When I got rid of all my vinyl records back in the 90s, there were a handful of vinyl records in storage, let's say. They were literally at my childhood home that I did not take with me in the military. Literally maybe a dozen albums. Either they were doubles or they were just, again, I was more into metal and I left them behind. This was one of them. Both Men at Work albums were left behind. But this album has survived since the day it was released, since my mother bought it for me. So the significance is this album literally was one that was purchased by my mother, who passed away way too early in 2002. Not quite 65 years old. Anyway, all right, moving up a few years. Now I'm in the military, and this one just reminds me so much. Amy Grant Unguarded reminds me so much of my roommate at the time. Really close friend of mine. We were roommates for a while. We stayed close. We're still close to a degree, obviously online. He lives in Connecticut. When I lived in New York, we used to see each other. We would drive back and forth one way or the other. Our kids kind of grew up together in the early years. And the funny thing that reminds me about this now is the other day I get an Instagram friend request from his wife. Again, close friend. We all just did everything together back in the 80s. Even before they were married, I was at their wedding. Close friends. And I get a friend request from her on Instagram. We're friends on Facebook, mind you. But here she pops up on Instagram. I'm like, okay. And so I accept it. And immediately she writes me, hey, how's it going? Blah, blah, blah. I can immediately tell from the way that she was just addressing me, this is not my friend at all. But I have fun with these people, right? So she's telling me this story about, how have things been? And the way she's talking, it doesn't sound like her at all. And I'm like, where's this going? When is it going to ask me for something? When is a link going to be sent? When is some scam coming? And then she tells me about how, did I tell you about my recent surgery and throat surgery and blah, 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 and vocal cords. And she's telling me this whole sob story about her throat surgery. And so in between my responses to her, I text my friend, hey, A, is your wife on Instagram? And B, did she have throat surgery recently? Just clarifying. He goes, A, yes, she's on Instagram. B, no, she's had no throat surgery. So I go back to this person on Instagram and I'm like, you know what I find funny? And she's like, what? I said, I find it funny that your husband doesn't know you had throat surgery. Oh, did I not tell you? We haven't been together for a while. So I wrote my friend back and said, and obviously you guys are separated too. And he just laughed. And anyway, I kept it going. I drug it out, and I just eventually said, whatever. I had some choice words with them before I blocked them. But it's just silly, I'm like, I knew it was a scam. I felt it was from the beginning, but she's on Instagram, so it could have been her. Funny, but so that just came up literally in the past week or so. And so that really reminded me of the friendship that I had and the closeness we had. But yeah, great friend, great stuff. Reminds me so much of the loving, fun times we had. Crazy people. All right, moving in roughly around the same time. Again, I think all of this is going to be, and that one's a little earlier than this, but yeah, they're all roughly the same time. Archangel, a band not well known by many people. They have this album, and then later down the road, years later, they got together and did another album. Think Bon Jovi-ish, hard, edgy at times, mainly AOR pop. It's rock. Radio friendly rock. One of my absolute favorite albums. Love this album. Has so many fond memories of this. And this album I used at least one or two songs on this, and I've told this story before, on mixtapes for my wife, my current wife. She was my girlfriend at the time. So this reminds me of making a mixtape for my girlfriend at the time, who now is my wife of 38 years. But back in the day, You know, this has got a lot of love song type stuff on it, and back in the day, there's at least one song on here that I used for that, if not more than one. And there were other bands too, but this album reminds me of that so much. Now, last one is a little tough, and I'll try to get through it. And that's this one. It's a CD, Hemotheory. This is my band, recorded in 2007. And this has a double shot for it, so you get a bonus here, double shot. The singer in this band, good friend of mine, is no longer with us. So he passed away in 2015, 15. So that is really, you know, a close thing there. Now, the thing that makes it worse is that my son, who passed away in 2009, he used to listen to this album all the time, in the car. He loved this album, to the point where I can hardly listen to this album now. It's hard. I miss him so much. And then a couple years later, my friend from the band passes. So anyway. All right, anyway. All right, well, anyway, won't go there. Sorry about that. So, yeah, there you go. 5 albums. Jump on the contest. Link below. You can see, you know, other people, see what they're doing. But link below for the contest. And you can jump on it and, you know, check out, support new channel here, fairly new. See what you think. And I'll see you later. Rock on and rock hard.